Hey, welcome. In this video, I'm going to be sharing my favorite recent art supplies. The way that I do this is by looking back on the art that I've created over the past year or so, and then looking at the supplies that I just really used and enjoyed using, because ultimately I think that the best supplies for you are the ones that you're actually going to use. So although I can think of some art supplies that perhaps are the best when it comes to creating watercolor or gouache art or anything like that, they don't always make it to my favorites list, because it's all well and good them being so, great and the best, but if I don't use them, are they really the best for me, basically? So I love these kind of videos and I hope that you find them helpful and enjoyable too. Starting off with sketchbooks, which are one of the supplies that I absolutely love, so much so that I've made a whole video talking about all the sketchbooks that I have, ranking them, talking about their pros and cons, and I'll leave that linked for you. But the sketchbook that I thoroughly enjoyed using this year was the Etcher Everyday Sketchbook, and with good reason. So this one I've already completed and made a video about. This one I have just maybe 3 pages left and a video is coming soon. But essentially the size that I really enjoyed was the B5 one. It's the one that normally comes with the white cover. It has it's the cold press version, which has for you cold press mixed media paper that's 230 GSM. Now I feel like one of the key things with Etcher is that the everyday sketchbooks, although they're cold press, they have less texture than the normal cold press have, in my opinion. That being said, it means that they work well with like ink and wash, because you can, they don't have a very rough texture, but also they work very well with a range of different wet medias. And I feel like that was one of the key things for this becoming one of my favorite sketchbooks, because I was able to use a range of different medias, both watercolor, gouache, pencils, whatever I wanted to use, I could use on it as well. If you ask me my ultimate favorite, if price was no issue, it would be the Signature Series Etcher sketchbook, hands down. However, I can't separate the cost from my art practice, so I still tend to feel really precious about using that sketchbook, and thus, it takes me a really long time to go through it. But in this one, it feels like a little bit more affordable, and yet the paper is really good quality. I enjoy it, and thus I've just really been making my way through it. As I've said, I've kind of made videos highlighting the art that I've created in these as well. But yeah, this is one of my favorite sketchbooks. Now, I think the other thing that's important to think about when it comes to sketchbooks is also like, what are you going to be creating in it? These sketchbooks have 100% cotton watercolor paper, so I have enjoyed them. I love the size, they work well with watercolor, with a range of different mediums, but they're not the cheapest. And I am still in that kind of phase where I do think about the cost when I am thinking about the art supplies that I'm using. So a cheaper alternative that I was also using was the Sea White of Brighton sketchbook. And this was one of my low pressure sketchbooks where I could really just do absolutely anything and not worry about having wasted a page as such, because ultimately it's just a lower price point, and yet the watercolor paper is still relatively good quality. It's cellulose, so it doesn't work the same way as 100% cotton watercolor paper, but that doesn't stop me from enjoying the sketchbook. It didn't stop me from making some really lovely pieces as well. And so this was one of my this is one of my favorite sketchbooks as well. and I have more, that fall into this favorites category. So I'd say favorites because I enjoy the paper and can do everything is the Everyday Sketchbook. Favorite low pressure sketchbook that handles watercolor and a range of different media as well is the Sea White sketchbook, bearing in mind that because it's cellulose, it does have like harsher edges, and as a result it does mean that I get some slightly different effects than what I would want. Favorite, again, low pressure sketchbook is the Caddy Fat book. Now this, again, there's a video showing all the art that I've made in this. This is a low pressure sketchbook. Like, I've done everything from swatches to finished pieces of work to like notes to abstract grids, absolutely everything in this sketchbook, and it's wonderful. It's handled it well. It does have a lot of limitations in terms of the fact that the paper's 100 GSM, so it's thin, it's handmade paper, so it has imperfections, it's rough, it doesn't handle like lots and lots of layers. So there are pros and cons to this sketchbook, but as for like a low pressure sketchbook where I don't necessarily have to worry about wasting a page, this has fulfilled it. because there's like, I think 200 pages inside this sketchbook. So you mess one up, that's fine. Turn the page and then keep it going. And that's why I really enjoyed this sketchbook. It's not what I use all the time because it is just a little bit, you know, a lower quality than the other ones that I've mentioned. And so it's more for a mess around and for exploring ideas. So these three, I'd say, were my favorite sketchbooks that I've just really been enjoying. This one I've finished, this one I've finished, this one I've finished, and this one just has this page left and then it is finished. And it's been a pleasure to work in, a pleasure to create mixed media pieces in. And this is also what I use to try and figure out, like, actually what are my favorite art supplies, because what supplies was I using in these sketchbooks and what supplies did I actually finish and have to replenish. And these sketchbooks fall into that category, caveat being that I'm not buying any more sketchbooks, so so I haven't bought any other C. White sketchbooks. Now, there are a few honourable mentions that I wanted to make with regards to sketchbooks. So the first one that is an honourable mention is the art creation sketchbooks. This sketchbook and I have had a bit of a love-hate relationship in that it's very highly recommended online, I feel, and I guess the key thing is it depends on what you want to create in it. So I have enjoyed using these sketchbooks as low pressure sketchbooks, as I've highlighted the other ones, but there's a clear difference or distinction with these. I feel like they can handle wet media to a certain degree, but not well. It is sketchbook paper, not mixed media paper, not watercolor paper, not 100% cotton paper, nothing. It is sketchbook paper, smooth sketchbook paper, which in theory, yes, because gouache is forgiving, you can create gouache pieces in there, and I've created some of my favorite pieces in here as well. But it's not the best sketchbook for wet media. Like, I wouldn't recommend it for wet media at all, unless you just want somewhere where, I think this has 180 pages, where again, you just want somewhere that's a bit more compact, that has a cute cover, where you can just create anything, and you don't mind if the pages warp, you don't mind if there are no normal, you know, blends, you don't mind if the watercolor doesn't behave the way that it normally behaves, and you don't mind the fact that you're essentially painting on drawing paper. If that's the case, then you may enjoy this. But this is why it wasn't really the right sketchbook for me when it comes to creating mixed media pieces, which are my favorite kind of art to create. And that's just because I don't feel like it leans itself well to wet media. This is all watercolor. So in theory, yes, I can do it, but not as well as I can in other sketchbooks. So then why does it get a mention at all? And that is, again, a question of price point, because they are relatively affordable. I think this was like £6, and they work well for other media. So if you like, you know, using markers, pencils, pens, that kind of thing, then this will work and you get a lot of pages, 160 to 180 pages. So for that reason, it's become like, it can be a true like messy sketchbook, anything goes kind of sketchbook. But for me, it would be one that I would reserve for dry media. So if you love dry media, then this is a great one for you. As I say, it's not, you know, it's affordable. The paper can handle media in theory. And so as a result, it's like, it's an okay sketchbook. I just think that when you hear it being recommended, just remember not for wet media, but great for dry media. And then the other honorable mention is this one, and I've made a video talking about this because we again had a love-hate relationship where I pretty much was like, nah, I hate this, and I bought more than one, so I do have more to complete, but it's not one that I want to buy once those ones are complete. And essentially 100% cotton mixed media paper, 64 pages, is a Strathmore 500 that a lot of people absolutely love. I don't know why. Again, it has the benefit that it can handle wet media. It can definitely handle mixed media, but I just don't like the way that it works with watercolor. And as watercolor is one of my favorite and primary mediums, it just means that it doesn't really work for me. I found that I couldn't really lift. I found that watercolor didn't really behave in the way that I would expect it to behave. And also it's a lot closer to hot press, like smooth paper. So it just didn't agree with me. That being said, I'd recommend watching that video because it motivated me to finish the sketchbook as quickly as possible. And it's one of the sketchbooks where I felt as like one of my most free, if that makes sense, because my aim was not to create nice pieces. It wasn't to create a nice sketchbook. It was purely to create as much art as possible, as quickly as possible, so that I could be done with this sketchbook. And as a result, I was really throwing caution to the wind, and I was just experimenting in the wildest of ways and really enjoying the process, even though I didn't enjoy the paper. Kind of similar to what I was going through with the Royal Talent. Sometimes it's funny that, you know, even though it's not the best art supply, it may be the best for you at that time. And certainly for me, like, I've created some really fun and like completely different pieces inside this sketchbook. Would I say that it's my favorite? No, I'm not planning on buying any others either. I'm just mentioning this because I think that, you know, you may have a sketchbook that perhaps you're not giving that much attention to. And sometimes the fact that it's not the best, the fact that it's not that expensive can actually be it can be a benefit. It can just mean that you can explore a bit more and really push yourself outside of your comfort zone and try new things and make the most of it, basically. And I'm always curious to know, like, if you have a sketchbook that you don't like, what do you do with it? Do you repurpose it? Do you, you know, do you try to finish it as quickly as possible? Do you just abandon it and move on to the next? I think all are valid. I'm just curious to know which one you do. Now, next, let's talk about paints. So my favorite paints, I feel like a broken record, but, you know, like, I like what I like. So my favorite paint brands, there are two that come to mind, plus a few extra mentions. The main one that comes to mind is Roman Schmall. Like, I absolutely love Roman Schmall paints. I've loved them for years, and I have a couple of palettes. I have these two that are more for like going around, although I use them in the studio as well. This palette was initially this one, which, although it's technically like a travel palette, I use it in the studio and just had my favorite, most used colors. It initially started off as the Roman Schmall urban sketching palette, and then I added a few colors here and there, and I replaced a few colors here and there, and then it resulted in this palette that I just really enjoyed using, and I used for pretty much the majority of 2023 and maybe like half of 2024. Then towards the end of 2024, my art members and I created a favorites palette. And as part of that, we kind of put together our favorite colors and made a palette up, and that's basically this. And I'll touch on that a little bit later, but again, some of the Roman Schmall colors were in there. So in terms of, I then wanted to replenish some of my Roman Schmall colors that I was running down on, and so there's always the option of buying the colors individually or buying a set, and sometimes it's actually worth having a look to see how much it costs to get a set, because in my instance it was actually cheaper to buy a set than to buy all the colors that I wanted individually. And the Mona Omrani set had the majority of the colors that I wanted, so I in fact ended up getting this, and it was cheaper to buy the set than to buy the colors individually. And I really enjoyed the colors that were in it, and this became a bit more of like a studio palette that I could use, and I've taken some of the colors out to put in a different palette. And then more recently, very recently in fact, Roman Schmall released another palette, this one being the Essentials palette, and this has quickly become one of my favorite palettes because it has the vast majority of the colors that that I wanted and that I use. And I've made a video like swatching it out and sharing all the colors that are inside it, but ultimately this is one of my favorite palettes at the moment because, as you can probably tell, it has a lot of the colors that I was using in my main travel palette anyway, and some like really nice new extras. So the Essentials palette is currently my favorite, but I like them because they have like really beautiful, unique granulating colors. They have a very wide range of just normal colors. They're good quality. They reactivate really nicely. And they, especially when I initially fell in love with them, their price point was like next to none. They were a lot cheaper than other watercolors that were the same quality. Since then in time, like the price has caught up, but still that's how I fell in love with them, and I've kind of stayed in love with them since, because yeah, they're like, for example, Aquarius green, autumn green, all these colors are just so really nice and unique to them, and I really enjoy them for that reason. And also Roman Schmore is a really nice guy. And he gifted me the Essentials palette, but the travel palette I had made myself, and just really enjoyed having these watercolors and using them. And for the most part in my paintings I am using Roman Schmore paints. I have another set of favorites, and that is, I mean, this is the worst example to show you, but that is the Daniel Smith paints. And I've put them in my portable painter because I don't know, I think it's such a cute and clever palette and I absolutely love it. So any and all opportunities I have to carry it out with me, I take it. And essentially it kind of leans to the fact that Roman Schmore don't have any tube paints yet. They only have pans and half pans, and as a result they're not the greatest for, you know, these kind of palettes where you're trying to make your own, or for mixing your own colors in terms of like making your own half pans and pouring them out and so on and so forth. And that is in part where Daniel Smith kind of comes in. I still think that they have really beautiful colors. Again, they have a wide range which include really nice granulating colors, and they were one of the first professional brands that I used, and I just haven't you know, I've stayed in love with them and haven't really found any reason to change. Now, with regards to my collection, Daniel Smith, okay, both Daniel Smith and Roman Schmore are the ones that I have the most of. And just to share with you, these are some of the Daniel Smith watercolors that I have. And as you can see, it's a wide range. I'm a sucker for greens and blues. I do like granulating colors now, although I didn't at the beginning. But yeah, both of these paints are the ones that I've used for the most part. And they also made a big part in the favorites palette that I made with my art members. Now, if you're looking for an art community online and you want to create with me and with others, chat with us, paint with us, join our Zoom sessions, and just really dedicate some time to your art practice, I'll leave my art membership links down below. But as I said, one of the things that we did was we came together, highlighted our favorite colors or a favorite color, and then used all of that to put together our favorites palette, which we did there. And quite a lot of them were Daniel Smith as well. So this palette also has a lot of Daniel Smith colors in there, and I've made a separate video for my art members about it. So if you want to see that, then you definitely can. So that's like favorite paints. The only other additional, I guess, on like, you know, extra mention is Core. I really like Core. They get a special mention as well because they are different to, they just move across the page in a really wild way, and that makes it enjoyable and unpredictable to use. They do have a place in my palette, and in fact the Core in Dantherin Blue is quite often in my palettes because I like using it to mix my greens, and then my greens also have a lot of personality and move around the page as well. So Roman Schmore, Daniel Smith and Core are my favorite watercolors at the moment, but there's definitely, like, I have so many that I'm eager to continue exploring. Then next, when it comes to gouache, I think I just love gouache as a whole in general. In terms of favorites and gouache that I've been using throughout the year, Winsor & Newton is still one of my favorites. Like, I love putting them in these cute little stay wet palettes because then it's less of a path of resistance when it comes to actually creating art, because they're just there and ready to go. I have let mine dry out because life has just been too busy for me to be painting and creating art as much as I want to, and I obviously don't want them to have any issues with mold or anything like that. So I've let them dry out completely, and then when I am ready and life allows again, I just re-wet and reactivate them, and then they are good to go again, and I can just keep painting and painting and painting. So Winsor & Newton still remain one of my favorite gouaches. I have had 2 new gouache brands join my mix that honestly I really enjoyed, and I'm hoping to be able to continue to explore them a bit better next year, and that is Holbein gouache and Daniel Smith gouache. When it comes to the Holbein gouache, so these are the colors, and they felt really, really nice and smooth to use. Like, I really did enjoy using them. I think the one caveat is that obviously they're not as light fast as other brands, but in terms of like how good they felt to use, I really enjoyed it. And I did kind of go down a gouache a gouache path where I couldn't stop painting with gouache when I started painting with them, and the same kind of went for the Daniel Smith gouache as well. But I think that for both of them, the key thing is that I just need more time to play around with them before I can say that they are my favorites. At the moment, I can't place one brand over the other, but what I can say is that I've been using Winsor & Newton for years without issue, and I can say that when I started Daniel Smith and Holbein, I just went down this rabbit hole of painting landscapes non-stop with gouache because I could not stop myself. I just really enjoyed painting with them. And then I kind of glanced over this really quickly, but years on, I think I made a video about this maybe 2 years ago when I first got the Stay Wet palette. 2 years later, still going strong, still one of my favorite palettes for gouache. I love it because it just makes it easier to actually be able to paint with gouache, and I have absolutely no complaints about using it. Like, yeah, it's just been really invaluable for me when it comes to using gouache and making it a regular practice, and that's 2 years in. In fact, I have like multiple, so this one, both of these are actually the Winsor & Newton gouache, and then I have another one that has the Daniel Smith gouache, and I need to make another one for my Holbein gouache. And I feel like once I put them in these and I actually have time, I'm then better able to actually paint with them and give them the attention that they really and truly need. And one of the other things that I do is with this one is I've just put a metal plate on there that you can get from Amazon, and what that means is that they can, you know, they're then magnet friendly. So when I am, you know, urban sketching or out and about painting, I can have the little clips that have the magnets on the edge and just like stick this on. Basically just makes it a lot easier for my painting outdoors or painting on the couch setup. So it's been really invaluable. Well, I guess I can kind of talk about it a little bit. One of the other things that I did with my members as well that we've been doing is just creating themed palettes. So the favorites palette was one, but then we also made an autumn palette, which I like has been one of my favorites, and I just painted so much with that. But who knew I loved autumn as much? But yeah, it just lent itself really well to creating really lovely autumnal pieces, and I think it's just a fun thing that you can try to do sometimes. So just give yourself a theme and try to create like a limited palette based on that theme. It may get you thinking about your colors differently, and it may also get you to use colors that perhaps you haven't used in a while because they lean themselves really well towards that theme. Next, I want to touch on mixed media. You may have noticed that like pieces like this and this, that I've just been really enjoying creating mixed media pieces as a whole, especially mixed media landscapes. I feel like the beauty of landscapes is you can just use so many different supplies, as many or as little as you want, and there's a freedom in that. You can just get lost in, you know, focusing on tiny details and colors and getting different textures, and I just really, really enjoy creating mixed media art. So in terms of the art supplies that have become some of my favorites when it comes to doing this, touched on the watercolor, we've touched on the gouache. I think next, a new addition has been this. So these are the tempera paint sticks. Whoops. These 4 colors are the ones that I use most, which is why they stay in my Etcher field case. But they come as a set of 30, and it's funny because when I first got it, I was not impressed. I was like, oh my gosh, another impulse buy that I'm going to regret. I even like wrote a blog post about the pros and the cons. So still like being fair to it, but equally like, oh my gosh, I can't believe that I did this again. But I couldn't stop myself using them. Like from the moment that I got them, I just kept using them. They're a really fun and playful supply. They are for children. They're not like for fine art or anything like that. They're not light fast or anything, but they are just so fun, and you can make so many cool and interesting marks with them. this is when I got them. So as you can see, these are the colors that come with the set. And one of the things that really drew me to them was the fact that once they dry completely matte. So you're able to layer on top of them a lot more easily. They don't cause any transfer across the page. They're not sticky. This feels like the rest of the page, and I can rub and nothing comes off my finger, like comes off on my fingers. And to me, I was like, oh my gosh, you know, after a while, I was like, this is so cool. But also because I had got them when I had this sketchbook that I didn't like, and then I got them and I was like, I didn't like that I couldn't really blend them easily, which I thought that they would be able to do. I just basically threw caution to the wind and I was like, okay, another supply that I need to use as quickly as possible. And so I started experimenting with them a lot. I just played around. I created landscapes in a mixed media way that I would have never thought of creating before. And honestly, it was just a lot of fun. And again, it came from the fact that I wasn't precious about them at all. They are relatively affordable. I think the set of 30 was £16. And initially I was like, oh, I don't really care. I'm not precious about them because, you know, I'm not even enjoying them that much, but I couldn't stop using them. And that in itself was a big key. So I did like cute experiments like this, for example, I painted and then I recreated it in the tempera sticks using this as the reference. And then I used this as the reference for this and so on, just chain reactions. I was just doing a whole bunch of random stuff that I hadn't really done before, because I had cool and playful new supplies. This actually reminds me there is, oh no, yeah. So as you can see, like these are the main colors that I tend to use. So this beautiful bright pink is what I like to use here for extra details. The blues for the blues for shadows, the whites for extra detail. This is maybe, the whites are maybe the only ones that do feel a little bit sticky afterwards. And then the yellows I like to use as well. And I just used it all over the sketchbook. They were just a lot of fun. And it's funny because they are children's art supplies. It's, you know, it's funny where you can find art supplies that really speak to you and that you really enjoy sometimes. Sometimes it's in completely unexpected places. So yeah, the tempera sticks were definitely a great and playful, joyful find for me. And then the other supplies that I also use, which I've mentioned pretty much every time that we've done these videos, are the Neocolor 2s. And they are water-soluble crayons. And I like these because, again, they can layer on top of almost anything. They come in a range of different colors. These are the colors that I tend to use most, which is why I've put them in this tin. Apart from, where have I put my white? There's normally a white that runs across the top here. That's the only color that's missing. But initially I bought the set of 15, and then with time I've built up and added new colors that I actually tend to use most. And it's funny because like this jade green, for example, I love using to add like pops of color. Same as this purple as well, pops of color. And I use them in a similar way to how I use the tempera sticks. But again, only that I have more control with them because they are smaller and they are firmer, so they feel quite different. Tempera sticks almost feel like lipstick that then dries completely matte, whereas the Neocolor 2s feel like crayons that if you want, you can reactivate with water, although I don't always tend to. For the most part, it tends to be like my final touches and tiny little details that I add, and I don't tend to then add water on top. Another supply that I've really been enjoying this year is this, not in this color, but I can't find my white one. One of the things, one, I've just moved, but also like, because I like creating art in lots of different places, I just keep putting my art supplies everywhere. But anyway, the white version of this is one of my favorites, and that's because it is a fine liner, and I don't know how I went years without knowing that Posca have white fine liners. It's the PC-1MR that has a 0.7mm nib that is essentially an acrylic paint pen that is a fine liner. And so it means that when I am painting white details, I can put, like this, for example, I can use it to put the tiniest of details. And even like you see all these flowers, like these tiny little points, they are again with the PC-1MR, and this fence here and these flowers like this here, again with that Posca pen. So I absolutely love using using that Posca pen, and this one as well. It's just the only thing is that, like, with this one, it's just that it's pink, you know, but and which is nice and it's fine. I just feel like I get more value out of the white one. Yeah, that was a wonderful discovery that I really enjoyed, because I've tried the Jelly Roll pen, I've tried the Sakura, I think the Sakura Jelly Roll, and there's another one that always gets recommended, but I tried both of them. Neither of them worked, but the Posca pen did. So that is one of my favorites. And then I have a couple of new additions that I've got maybe for the past 2 months, and I've really been enjoying them for the past 2 months. They've featured in all these landscapes that I've been showing you, but it's only been 2 months, so I don't know if I can call them favorites yet. Oops. But they are the Carbothello pencils, which are essentially like pastel pencils, and I really like them because you can layer them surprisingly on top of things. Let me show you. So this, for example, in this video I really showed how you can layer with them, but like, even though like this, as you can see, could layer right on top of that dark blue. I'm just so amazed and impressed by the fact that you can layer on top of, like, you can use this as one of your final layers. And obviously I know that that's just touching the very tip of the iceberg when it comes to the opportunities when it comes to pastel pencils. You know, you can use them for a lot of like hyper realistic, fine, detailed work, but for the fact that I can use them to add extra layers on top of things that perhaps I wouldn't be able to layer on top of, and also the fact that I can use them for extra tiny details, I absolutely have been loving and really enjoying them in my mixed media work. I've also really been enjoying using the Inktense pencils, not the blocks. Still don't like the blocks, but the pencils, again, I really enjoy because you are able to layer on top. You can reactivate them with water as well. So I've just got a few, but so far so good, and probably too early to call them favorites, but I would be lying if I said that I haven't been using them like crazy over the past 2 months. And then it's these two. So basically everything from that mixed media art haul, which I'll leave linked for you, but which is where I made this piece. But yeah, I've really been enjoying using the Tombow pens as well as the Ecoline brush pens, which are basically water soluble markers. And it's funny because during that, the reason that I did that art haul video was because the shop was having 40% off, and as a result I kind of felt a little bit better about, you know, getting supplies that perhaps I'd been curious about before but I hadn't used them or hadn't, you know, bought them before. And this kind of allowed me to take the plunge, and I'm just so glad that it did when it came to the Tombows and the Ecolines and the Carbothello, because as I said, I've just really been enjoying using them in my mixed media work at the moment. I can't, oops, I feel like it's still a bit too soon to say like Tombow versus Ecoline or Ecoline, which one is my favorite. But you know, at the moment I'm enjoying both, and I'm certainly like, you know, I've stuffed them inside my etcher case, and I've just been enjoying. And maybe next year I'll be able to give a better idea as to what my actual ultimate absolute favorites are when it comes to the two, whether it's one, the other, or both. So in terms of where I have been storing most of this, either all over my desk, as you can probably tell, but also I've really been enjoying the Etcher Field case. I've had this for over a year now. I think I made a video when I first got it, and the aim of this is purely the fact that, as I've kind of alluded to, that I use stuff and put them here, there and everywhere, and I'm trying to have like a central place where I can put my art supplies and just be able to pick this up and go. And this is basically what it has been for me at the moment. It was a gift from Etcher because I am one of their ambassadors, and if you want to get any Etcher art supplies, you can use the code Sketches10 and then you'll get 10% off. When it comes to pens, and I can show you my paintings here, so sometimes I like doing like ink and wash, and this is a piece that I created when I went urban sketching with Sarah Burns Studio. If you don't know her, she's an incredible landscape artist, and I'll leave her YouTube channel linked for you. But yeah, I really enjoyed the process. Or, as is the case here, just sketching with pen. I think that that can also be really enjoyable. So I have these two pens which are my favorites, and I use carbon black ink inside it, which is an ink that is water resistant, so it won't get reactivated with water. It's the same one that's been in every video that I've made about this all the time, because, you know, if it's not broke, don't fix it. So this is the Lamy Safari that I really enjoy, and it is the fine nib. And as I say, I fill it up with black ink. And then this was a new addition towards the end of last year that I've just been using like crazy this year, and this is the Food pen, but essentially it's the pen that has a bit of an angle at the tip. Again, has the same ink, because for both of them I had to buy a converter separately. And yeah, I've really been enjoying using both of them. If anything, I enjoy the Food more because of the fact that I can make a wide range of lines. For example, like I can put it down and I can do this, but I can also, you know, do this. So I just get such a wide range of possibilities with this one pen. That being said, sometimes it's like there's a little bit of drag. Like, can you see how I'm getting that dry brush a bit unintentionally? That is the one thing that puts the one negative, and the one reason why, if I know that actually I don't want that variation in line width, then I'll just go with the Lamy Safari, which I find to just be a little bit more reliable. So these two pens are my absolute favorite fountain pens. Oh yeah, so in terms of brushes, I feel like I'm never like the best person when it comes to like brushes, because if it works, I'll like it, you know what I mean? Like, I don't need anything crazy special. But in terms of the brushes that I've really been loving and using a lot this year, one has been the just flat brushes as a whole. I've just really been enjoying the shapes that they make. I like the effect that they have. I've been using them a lot in my landscapes, and I feel like you can tell both in my watercolor landscapes and gouache landscapes. I just feel like they make everything, like this one for example, I feel like if you really pay attention to the brush strokes, everything's a little bit more angular, and I really like that. So I've really been enjoying using these brushes. So the ones that I've used in particular, if you wanted to know, are the Icon brush by Jackson's. So this one is the 1/2 inch. I think they also have like a 3/8 inch or something like that, a slightly bigger one. So there's one that's one size up of Jackson's. That's actually my favorite size. But it's so funny because both of these are technically the same size, but to me they are different, with this one being smaller than the other one. But anyway, Icon is one that I've been enjoying, and the other one that I've really been enjoying is the Pro Art brushes. And what's so funny is that I bought a set, like this was a set of 5 brushes for £5. Yeah, so they're £1 each, the Pro Art brushes, and I have just been using them like crazy. They haven't shed. They are discontinued, unfortunately, but I just really like them, especially for gouache, because they're really firm synthetic brushes, and so water control is really nice and easy with them. And I've just, as I say, I've just been enjoying using flat brushes. Can't really go wrong. When it comes to round brushes, I still certainly use them, especially these are also all used with flat brushes, but I still really enjoy using them, especially when I'm painting florals, which I haven't been painting as much recently. Part of me wonders like if YouTube has a role to play in that. But anyway, this is also flat brush. This is a round brush. Can you tell? I don't know, let me know if you can tell. But yeah, I've really been enjoying using round brushes as well, although I'm very much on a flat brush kick. Now, when it comes to round brushes, the ones that I have been enjoying most are these 3 in terms of round. So the Princeton Neptune Aqua Elite is the firmest of these 3, and it just is just so, it's like one of my first good quality brushes, and it's reliable. I still like it. It's firmer than the rest. Water control is a bit easier because it holds less water for me, and it just gives me more control. So if I want more control, then I'm going for the Princeton Aqua Elite. I have a size 12 and I have a size 8, and I absolutely love both of them. Then if we're getting to like the softer brushes, we have the Princeton Neptune, which again, I really enjoy. This is a size 12 Princeton Neptune. This is softer, it holds more water, so if I want something that's looser, more playful, more expressive, then I tend to like using the Princeton Neptune. I also, oddly enough, started really liking it for doing swatches, because especially if I was doing like really big swatches and I wanted to kind of see the effect of water, if I was using like granulating paints, for example, then I felt like it leaned very well for that. As does the Silver Black Velvet, which again is soft. I think out of the two, I always get stuck as to which is softer, but I think the Silver Black Velvet is softer than the Princeton Neptune. The only thing is that I didn't know at the time when I got the Black Velvet that it's got animal fur, and where possible I try not to get, I try to stick to synthetics where possible, but I don't know how I missed that. It's mixed, and so I got it. So it is a good brush, but it's not necessarily one that I recommend for that reason. I haven't been using my dagger brushes as much recently. Again, I think it's more so because I like using them for florals, and I haven't been painting florals as much recently. But the dagger brush that I just really enjoy is the Rosemary & Co. dagger brush. I have got some new brushes very kindly gifted to me by Christy Rice, so I am excited to use those, especially because I know that she has a really wonderful dagger brush in there as well. But for the moment, in terms of the one that I have been using and really enjoying, it is this specific dagger brush, which is the 3/8 inch Rosemary & Co. Series 311 dagger brush. And as you can see, like, it is very, very well loved. And these are the brushes that I go to time and time again, with the inclusion of the size 8, which is a slightly smaller brush. And I feel like with these brushes, I can paint everything and some. And as you can see, they are messy, they are well loved and well used. I always find it tricky to know, like, how can I say something is my absolute favorite without trying out everything else? I feel like I sound like a cheater or something. But a few random art supply adjacent favorites. This tape, I don't know why I love it so much. I just know that I do. It gets me just like really nice clean edges. There's something so satisfying about using it. So this is the Scotch Magic tape that I love to use. I always have to wait for it to go on sale and then get some, because it's always ridiculously priced. So that is that. And then also my little clips, and I love these because they are magnets, which means that I can clip them to my sketchbook to hold it open, but equally they can stick and attach to my palettes and just make my setup a lot easier and a lot more secure. So they are small but mighty and very, very helpful. I've also started using palette knives to try and do like extra mark making when I am creating my mixed media pieces. So these are like adjacent tools, but tools that I always take with me when I am painting, as well as like a spritzer bottle. And I have a bigger one that I normally like have in my studio, but this is helpful for wetting your whole page. It's also helpful for like wetting your paints before you start, and again, relatively inexpensive. And last but not least, where is it? Like every year, this pencil this pencil is still, is still one of my favorites. It's the Pentel Graph Gear 1000 pencil 0.5. I just really enjoy the way that it feels. I love the, I just really enjoy the way that it feels. I enjoy using it to sketch. There's really not much more to say about that. It's one of them things where, like, I didn't realize that I was a pencil person, or I didn't realize that I would be the type of person to have a favorite pencil. And yet, from the moment that I've used this, I haven't gone back. Another random question for you. Have you liked the video yet? Just asking. But yeah, what supplies am I using non-stop? And that is what informs these videos. But it also gets me excited and inspired to use things even more and to try things even more. So for example, the Artist Pitt pens, which are one of my favorites that I have really been enjoying. I recently got the thinner version of them, and that is because I have been loving the big dual tip ones, but they take up a lot of space, especially as I'm trying to make things a little bit more compact when I'm carrying my Etcher field case. And I had no idea, I don't know how, that they actually had the thinner version, which is what they came out with first. So I've got a few colours of the thinner versions to use to complement my art, and I'm hoping that I will love them as much as I love the bigger ones, if not more. And this is some of the art that I created with the bigger Artist Pitt pens that, again, I just really really enjoyed. And then mixed media pieces, like I used it with gouache, watercolor and pit pens and I just absolutely loved it. So I almost feel like I need to do another fruit series to really get on board. When it comes to other favorites that I want to share, in terms of like my favorite videos that I have made, because why not, sometimes, you know, you've got to back yourself. My absolute favorite video of 2024 was the Nice video that I made, which was essentially an art, like a mini artist retreat that I took myself and my sister on in Nice. And it was a wonderful experience, but I also loved the way that it all came together inside the vlog, and it brings back good memories when I watch it, and the reception to that was really lovely. So that is one of my favorite videos of all time, maybe, but certainly of 2024. And then another video that I really enjoyed making was the Granulating Secrets video. And I really enjoyed that because I feel like it just demystified this idea that in order to get good quality watercolors or to get interesting effects with watercolors, you need to use expensive ones, which is just not true. And I kind of feel like I just enjoyed putting that together. I enjoyed all the experimentation, and I enjoyed like all the comments and basically people coming away feeling inspired, like, you know what, I'm gonna go and use my watercolors and make my mixes, because more often than not you can make better mixes than what are like sold as a whole. So that video I absolutely loved. And then I also really enjoyed the mixed media art haul that I did. Now I know that art hauls are always like a little bit contentious, but I just had fun in it. And not only that, like I loved trying to put together all the art supplies that I bought to create that mixed media landscape, and putting together everything that I had learnt more recently into creating that landscape. And also the fact that from that art haul I have actually discovered new favorites, such as the, you know, the slimmer pit pens, the Tombos, the Ecoline and the Carbothello pencils. They all came from that art haul, so that felt like a really valuable valuable experience. So those are my 3 favorite videos if I had to pick them off the top of my head. And then the other thing that I've really been enjoying as well, that I kind of alluded to, is doing Zoom sessions with my members. I've absolutely loved it, and if you want to join, you can down below in the description. But as well as that, I've been joining other artists in their memberships, and I've really been enjoying that as well. And it's just a whole new vibe. It's just, yeah, it's I don't know why I'm struggling to speak, but I feel like it's a whole new vibe. It's completely different to YouTube. It feels more intimate than YouTube, and it feels like I learn getting to meet more people who, you know, love art supplies and art as much as I do. So it's been really enjoyable. In terms of the ones that I've really enjoyed, there's so many. Like I've been in them and trying to make my way, and if I could, you know, highlight them all, I would. However, the top 3 that I've really enjoyed using, maybe top 4. Now, my favorite ones are the ones that have live sessions, because that's the thing that I just absolutely love at the moment, being able to engage and interact with other artists. The memberships that come to mind, as well as my own, obviously, are Sarah Burns's one, especially if you love painting landscapes. Omar Wynn, for that same reason, especially if you enjoy creating mixed media pieces. Melanie Chadwick is great for creating a range of different things, animals, having swatch sessions, but again, I just really enjoy the vibe of her live sessions. And last but not least, TJ Marston. I really enjoyed her sessions as well. And again, they range, they're not just landscapes, but I feel like I really enjoy her sessions specifically for like mixed media and how to put them together. And her artwork in itself, like all these artists, is really unique. And so I guess I find artists whose art I'm really attracted to and who, you know, I feel are really lovely, and I enjoy their sessions, and they're the sessions that I go. So those 4 I certainly like really enjoyed. And if you haven't seen them, I highly recommend them, as well as others. If you would like a video highlighting that, then please let me know, and I will make one. But these are my favorites, my recent favorites. It feels crazy to have all of them in one video. So maybe next year I'll do them every quarter or something. But if you are still watching, then you are a real MVP, and I really appreciate you, especially as this was a really long video. Let me know that you're still watching by telling me your favorite art supplies that you're really enjoying using at the moment. If you enjoyed this video, then you will definitely love this series of next ones where I highlight even more of my favorite art supplies. Thank you so much for watching. God bless, and I'll see you next time. Bye.